Episode 187 Above Ground Podcast, Low Self-Opinion.
Disclaimer. The hosts of this podcast, Will Foley and TPP, are not medical professionals, and this is not medical advice. Both Will and TPP have first-hand experience with mental illness. They have their own perspective and own thoughts on mental health challenges. Above Ground Podcast was birthed to help those who struggle with their mental health. By speaking openly and sharing tools, they foster connection. By fostering connection, they convey hope. With connection and hope, we can continue to increase awareness. These conversations aim to break down the walls while building stronger foundations for positive mental health. This is Above Ground Podcast.
Coming at you live with real conversations about mental health from the perspective. It's time for Above Ground Podcast. Now your hosts, TPP and Will Foley. Hey, what is up, everyone? Welcome to episode 187 Above Ground Podcast, Low Self-Opinion, which we're going to get to in a few moments. First up, I want to give a huge shout out and say thank you to everyone who came out Sunday to our first mental health meetup peer group at the Sages Circle in Glenville. That's right, Nippertown's premier metaphysical boutique and spirit shop. It's amazing, and everybody there was so great, and we had a great turnout, and we're going to be doing another one probably by next week or two. I'll have a date for you, so just stay tuned. If you've come, if you came, thank you very much, and if you didn't get a chance to come to the next one when you can sign up, but we'll let you know when. Also, looking back on last week's episode 186, Dance the Night Away with Gene Truella. Gene is offering a free class in the month of January to mental health professionals at Movement Insights. Movement Insights is located at 100 Saratoga Village Boulevard, Suite 10 in Ballston Spa. It's in Malta. It's exit 12 if you're coming up I-87 the north way here in Nippertown. She's offering a free class. I'm going to sign up for a free class, and I can't wait to go. I can see where movement is so important in processing things, and it makes a lot of sense to me. So I'm going to try it out, and I'll report back, but I hope all you mental health professionals out there will take advantage of it. She is an amazing woman with a great story, just a fine heart and soul. And the next thing, our very own Timmy TPP parent, his book, Never Underestimate the Power of You, Sunday, February 12th at 6 p.m., he is doing a book discussion and signing at the Sages Circle. That's right, the Sages Circle has become like one of our really favorite cool spots, man. And it's if you're here in Nippertown, man, it's at 443 Saratoga Rd in Glenville, New York. It's on Route 50, and it's a great place, amazing vibe, amazing people. So check out thesagescircle.com and come to Timmy's book signing and discussion. Never underestimate the power of you, because life is a DIY project, man. All right. Episode 187 Above Ground Podcast, Low Self-Opinion. Hey, what is up, everyone? Welcome to 2023 and episode 187,
Low Self-Opinion.
You've got a low self-opinion, man.
This episode is brought to you by Nippertown.
That's right, Nippertown. Nippertown. Check us out every Wednesday on Nippertown. Yes, some days earlier than others, as I've recently, made the blunders of over the last couple.
Blunderbuss.
There's a blunderbuss. But it's the start of a new year, man. And why are we going to talk about low self-opinion right away? Because we have it. That's
because
why.
We can.
Because we can, everybody.
Because we
can, why.
And because we will, and because we have it.
So here's a question for you: to start this shindig.
All right.
Where do you think low self-opinion starts? Does it start when you're a child, and is it something that gets put into your head, and then when you witness things, you get the feedback that you should have a low self-opinion, and does that change as you get older, or does it just keep creeping in all the time?
Yeah, I think see all the above. I do think that childhood experiences definitely shape it. I think whether it's our family setting, whether it's in the school system, I think that I think our culture kind of almost breeds it in a way, because between sports, between just all the different activities, and if you are a kid that not even fall through the cracks, but maybe you play bass, and bass isn't really that cool because there's nothing really in school for bass, so you don't play football, you don't play soccer, so you get that feeling of what we talk about here often is the connection, like, where's my tribe?
I like where you're going with this. Something else came up recently as I made a comment on someone who had posted something. It was on our Instagram page, and it was about it was from like a men's health like site, and it was talking about how men are like advertised to, or talked about in the media, and I actually made a comment on it as I was sitting waiting for you, about how it's amazing that you look up something, okay? And I use the example of ED medication. You hit a certain age in life, sometimes you need help, right? What happens is you're already struggling with all kinds of issues surrounding that. Then all of a sudden the algorithm just feeds you ad after ad after ad about big dick pills, about how to make it bigger, and it's all bullshit.
Can we say big dick here? Yep, we got the green light.
Yeah, we got the green light. Nobody gets to edit. Nobody edits the editor.
Yeah,
but I'm serious, because it's not.
Know. Well,
and it's like, so it's like it starts in childhood, and then it just keeps on going. And I think with the dawn of social media, it's escalated even more.
It's the introduction of weapons of mass distraction.
Yes. Yeah, they are mass distraction. And they are mass coma-inducing, trauma-inducing.
You're right. You're right. I do think they are trauma-inducing. There's a lot of stuff that we don't know still that contributes to this. But I think the whole dopamine rush is sitting there and just at the fingertips, and not ever having that thought of getting curious and getting adventurous and creative and saying, well, I'm bored, what can I do?
We don't have to do that anymore.
That's what I'm saying. You lose that, and that's a whole other, because I can't really talk about that as a child, because we didn't experience that.
We didn't have that when we were kids.
Right. So I would just say, childhood situations, experiences, as we know, whether what we receive is true or false, we receive it how we receive it. So something happens, and may not be intentionally like, oh, you're you have this or you have that. We take it as, oh, we're bad, or we're it's negative, I did something wrong, and so you add those anchors of shame. You add the anchors of all these other hurt, sad, angry, and as a young adult, child, you don't know these emotions. We don't talk about these emotions. They don't really talk about them in school, so you don't know what you're even feeling.
I think you know the emotions, but you don't know what the emotions are, because you don't have a word to describe them. You feel the emotion for sure. You just don't realize what it is. Or
that's what I meant.
Or you're told it's shame or it's guilt.
Right. Or
but
exactly. You're told what it is.
You're told what it is by a limited vocabulary of people.
So I guess this is what I am because an adult told me, right? So. But yeah, I think that is a huge factor in it. And then growing up, same thing. You know, maybe you're not whatever the trend is currently, you know, if you're not wearing the cool clothes, if you don't have the hair gel, if you're not going to the gym and all buff, you know, if you're not wearing yoga pants, if you're not wearing those stupid boots, you know, all that shit that just piles on. It's like people feel the need that they have to do these things, and they you know, advertising, media, you know what I mean? Like, how many times do you pick up a magazine and there's a oversized woman on it? You know, you see more now, but even now there's not too many. You know, it's always the you know, the ideal according to the masses, the ideal sculpture of a woman.
Well, and that's the same thing though with men too.
It is, yeah.
And I'm just saying, and I mean, now granted, look, if you're gonna pick up a Men's Health magazine, okay, you're not gonna see dad bod,
right?
Okay, because that's not what people are picking it up for,
right?
So, but it does play into the low self-esteem,
sure. Yeah,
for sure,
yeah,
and
that's
especially
why I'm
if you're
talking
especially if you're more geared towards that. And you're unable to express the pain of your distress, and you withdraw deeper inside. Because that's what happens. We withdraw deeper inside and isolate ourselves. And then we surround ourselves with the things that make us comfortable.
Right.
And that leads to a whole cycle of just the constant feedback loop of, oh, I got to make myself feel better. And again, we're not comfortable being uncomfortable.
Well, that's
now
where it all stems from.
Right. But I'm also not saying that you should be comfortable with somebody putting you down.
Right.
Like, that's not what I'm saying.
Right.
But what I am saying is at some point you have to stand up for yourself. And I'm not saying that in a physical altercation way all the time, but I'm saying is standing up for yourself to say, you know what, I am worth more than that. But how do you figure out how you're worth more?
The problem is, if you're at that point, you may not even feel that you have worth because you're already at that low point. You know what I mean? That's why I'm saying this culture kind of doesn't. It's a hard, because you can't just. At the same time, I don't think you can just give everybody trophies either and say, you know, cheer up, you did it. You know, we're all number one.
I agree that you cannot give everybody a participation trophy because it has the opposite effect of what.
Right.
You know, and that's not even to say that this is about who's better than someone else.
No, it's not.
But
it's just about
you can't offer participation just for participating. You get a big fat shiny trophy because what happens is then everything becomes degrading. It degrades every time you step up a level, and there's no.
I think what you said just a little while ago. Like, I don't know exactly what you said, but something about not having the vocabulary.
Yes.
I think that is extremely overlooked. I actually put that in my book talking about depression. It's like a disconnect or not having something inside of you that you cannot convey. You don't have the vocabulary to say, like, I'm feeling X and I need this. You know what I mean? We don't have that. You know?
I get it.
And I think that is because it goes back to what you said. If you don't have the vocabulary to do it, someone's going to tell you who you are, and then you're going to go, well, I guess that's who I am.
And it's funny that you mentioned the book, because when I wrote memoir, I actually sat down with those lists of emotions, and I went through them to find the perfect one to match. Because again. Like, you can say it's fear, you can say it, but it's not. It's all these other things. And you have to, but you also have to put in, you have to be willing to look at yourself and say, okay, I don't have the language, but that doesn't mean that I can't find the language. Because that'll actually create self-esteem. If you solve your own problem, I definitely think that that's a step in the right direction. If you can figure out how to cure your own problem. And I'm not saying you're going to cure all your ills, but if you can solve one thing that plays into your low self-opinion. And now, do we know where low self-opinion stems from? Are we willing to sit down and look at it and say, well, I remember this being said to me as a kid. I remember this incident. Like, do you think we have enough ability to sit down and actually look in the mirror and start looking at everything to make, because I'll tell you, if you looked at social media like we do a lot, you would think everybody's doing this shit because
here's the thing, and it's not necessarily about do you have the vocabulary to do it. I think personally it all goes back to what you said a little while ago, is that uncomfortable feeling, because that's the stem, that's the root of it actually, is the uncomfortable feeling. So we felt that uncomfortable feeling once. Okay, the brain remembered it because that's what it does, because we're survival. It's like, don't do X because this feeling's going to come on, okay? So now we know that feeling. We're like, oh. So now, like you said, we develop habits, whatever you want to call them, that avoid these uncomfortable feelings. And that's kind of like, I don't think people are willing to look in the mirror, sit and take some accountability, because let's face it, it's going to get uncomfortable.
I agree.
You're gonna feel things that are going to be heavy. You're going to feel things that you may not have felt before. You're going to think things that you may not have even noticed before.
You're right. However, the thing about the feedback loop is not only do you have a negative feedback loop set in by all these things that you've internalized and dropped in your jukebox, in the Olympic jukebox, but every time something comes up that even triggers those feelings, that plays again in your mind.
Right.
So what happens is you create two negative feedback loops, because you create the old feedback loop and then you create a new feedback loop that says, oh my God, see, I'm still feeling this way and now I'm in it again.
And once that needle hits and gets into those grooves and it gets deeper and deeper, then it's,
then it's hard to move.
By the time you're 30, you're like, wow, I can't even change the record, man.
But you can. You can always change the record. But you have to believe that you can change the record. And a lot of this stuff, a lot of like the base level stuff that we struggle with, that most people struggle with, that is not mental illness, okay? Like the anxiety. Anxiety to me is not a mental illness. Anxiety is a challenge, but I don't think that anxiety is an illness unless it creates these other things that create these shutoffs.
I think it can be considered. I mean, it's a matter of language, I guess, but I think it would definitely be considered if it's reoccurring. If it's I can't think of the word. Begins with a C. I see it in my head, but
coexisting.
No, unless it's like repetitive. Unless that anxiety is like making it so you can't go to work. You know what I mean? Like,
that's what I mean. Yeah. I'm saying like the generalized anxiety that most people feel is not an illness. It doesn't become an illness until it affects other areas of your life.
Okay. I see what you're saying.
So living with a certain amount of anxiety is not only going to happen, it's just you have to learn how to navigate that.
Right.
And then, but if you have a low self-opinion of yourself, then it makes it harder for you to
I was going to say that makes
to adapt.
I think it makes everything harder.
Yeah,
I think
it makes it,
as we've kind of come to know here at Above Ground, is that your foundation, if built with self-love, is, I think everything else will kind of be a little bit easier for you.
I haven't met that many people though that have have foundations of self-love. No, I think a lot of us have low self-opinions about a lot of things about ourselves, and then we just try to overcompensate.
The word I'm looking for was compulsive.
Compulsive.
Yeah. It just came to me when you said that, because again, like a lot of people have, sure, it could be typical to be like this and this, but then again, when these thoughts become compulsive,
oh sure,
and reoccurring, then it can,
does lead, absolutely.
It can drag you down, and again, if that needle's on the same record, it's hard for you to distinguish fact from fiction.
Yeah, that's interesting that you say what's fact versus what's fiction. Are the emotions you feel fiction? Not to you in that time.
Right.
Because
I think the emotions themselves are, if you're feeling it, that's factual. But the reason why you're feeling it is that factual?
Right. Is it
key.
true? Is
right.
it
Is that
is
true?
it true? Is it accurate?
Right.
Is it
I'm
really
sad because I'm unworthy because I, this or that. I'm ugly. But is that real? Like, you're feeling that. That's
Right.
valid. That's valid.
That's valid.
Yes. But the reason why you're feeling that is that true or is that false?
Right. And I think a lot of the stuff that we tell ourselves is false.
Absolutely is.
And regardless of whether it's to build you up or to tear yourself down, like a lot of the stuff that we believe is false.
Right. Right. But I think going back to having that foundation of, if you have that foundation of self-love, it kind of, it'll make you less susceptible to some of these other things,
And
because
self-love is findable. You can find self-love.
Oh, yeah.
We can build it. We're building it here every week.
It's inside, man. It's all, everything we need is inside. There's nothing that we need that is outside of ourselves.
Well, that depends on who you ask.
It does, but if you ask me, which I have the microphone, I'm saying it's inside.
There's no separation.
Yeah, it's inside.
It's when we separate everything that we have, the divides that we have, man.
Agree.
And we divide ourselves.
And just because just because I'm saying you have it already inside of you doesn't mean that you can't lean on somebody to kind of say, hey, you know what? Like, you already have this, but I'm going to just build you up a little bit or carry you, a block so you can make it across the finish line sort of thing.
Absolutely. And that's the whole idea of this, isn't it? To carry someone across the finish line? At least it is in my mind.
Yeah, I think there's. I would like to be able to show people that they themselves can get over the finish line and kind of let them know that, again, whatever they think they need outside, they already have.
It just has to be uncovered.
Exactly.
It's generally it's buried in a bunch of bullshit.
Yeah, it's buried in
all this
self-opinion,
right? And your
because
low self-opinion,
of all the shit that people have told you, and whether or not it was intentional, the experiences that you had shaped you, and whether you had cognitive distortions on those situations or not, they happened, and regardless, again, what you think or don't think, you feel this because of that. So you maybe a cognitive distortion, but regardless, you're feeling it. And if you felt it enough and it became a real, then you are kind of living it.
That's true. And especially if it's a reel, then it just plays and plays and plays.
Oh, it's constant.
It just constantly plays.
Yeah. I mean, you don't even have to look for it anymore. It just plays on its own.
Right.
It's an unconscious
as soon
thing.
as you open your eyes.
Yeah.
It's just like opening in like Instagram or whatever.
Right.
As soon bang, you're right to the reels, and it's like whatever.
And you know, just like Instagram, like you just said a little while ago, those ads pop up, same thing in your head.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
You create those ads and they're just popping up. Again, are they real? Is it fact or is it fiction? Are these things
I guess it depends on how it makes you feel. And again, if it makes you feel a certain way, then you got some work to do. And we always have work to do.
Always, yeah. There's always something. There's always things to be learned.
Absolutely, man. Try some introspection, and you just might find it. Because that's really what it is. I mean, like we talked about before, asking better questions. And it really does come down to who are you and what do you want for yourself? And that's hard to find if you're in the throes of panic or depression or anxiety that's just like hard to control.
Well, I think I think that is like should be one of the first questions asked. Actually, I think that is something that will establish a bridge over that low self.
But do you think that enough people can answer that?
No, but if you ask, like, how many times have you been asked that, though? You know what I mean?
Well,
it's like, hey,
I don't expect anybody
to
to ask it but me.
Can you jump through a hula hoop with 1 foot? It's like, I've never done it before, so I don't even know. So if no one's asked you this question before,
yeah, but when do you?
Who are you? What do you want? kind of thing.
But maybe it's not a question for someone else to ask. Maybe it's a question for you to ask.
That's fine. I'm not saying it is. I'm not saying either way. It's just a question that you've never been asked, or a question that's never been in front of you.
Okay.
You've never
Fair
asked
enough.
it. No one's ever approached you with it. It's kind of a foreign question. So, some people, whoa, who am and then think about it. And that to me is like, that was like the heart of journaling for me was that. It's like, that's where you kind of branch out from. You start there. Who am I? What do you want to do? And like, what are you thinking? What are your values?
Who are you outside of your roles? Because most of this is all roles that we play. So getting to the true self, or whatever our ideal true self is for ourselves. But I'm wondering though, I don't think enough people have gathered the stones to ask that question of themselves.
Yeah, and like I said, I don't know if it's a matter of not having the stones or just not. Life's fast paced, man. Like, why am I gonna ask this question when I'm, working 50 hours and I gotta come rush home and, and do this, or I gotta go out on a date, or I gotta make dinner for the kids, or, gotta take the wife out, gotta take the husband out, and, you got a list of things that, so it's like, it goes back to mindfulness. It's you know what I mean? Like, stop for a minute, slow down. Like, people are like, I don't have time, I can't do that. Well, really? Like, you don't have time? Because 5 minutes could really save your life.
5 minutes. That's funny that you say 5 minutes, because within the last few months, I've been taking 5 minutes when I need it, and I will set my phone timer. I will set my phone timer and literally do a standing meditation for 5 minutes just to clear shit out, man.
That's awesome. How's it been going?
It's been going all right.
See?
But again, like we've talked about, and Tim's known me for a really long time. Tim's seen me at some of my worst and some of my best. And I have integrated a lot of the stuff that I've learned. And I'm proud to say that now. And I can finally see that, because some of the stuff that I've been dealing with in recent months and stuff, like, I would have handled completely different had I not been doing this.
And I think
and I also not have the language to express how I'm feeling, because I will say this. I think that is a lot of people's issues, is that they feel self-conscious about expressing it because they don't have the language and they don't have the ability as of right now to say, I'm feeling shitty, but I can't describe how I'm feeling.
It's the same thing, suicide. Someone dies by suicide. We don't have really the language. Logically, we could just go, hey, I am super sorry for your loss. If there's anything you need, whatever. But we feel like we have to, like, do more, maybe. I'm not really sure, but I don't know. It's like checking your pulse before checking somebody else's pulse.
Well, like, you've always used the oxygen mask, and it really is about putting your oxygen mask on first. However, I do think that with suicide, I think people get stuck because, A, they don't know what to say. But
well,
B,
that's what I'm saying.
B, they don't want to say the wrong thing unless they're just completely just ignorant of emotion. Because that to me too, like, and I've noticed it just with all this stuff. Like, we recently, everybody knows about the suicide of Twitch, the DJ from Ellen DeGeneres. And I was thinking about it the other day when I was driving into work, that, we uphold and put these cultural icons on pedestals. And we're so surprised when somebody ends their life. Yet you don't express the same surprise that your neighbor down the street just lost their son or daughter, or anything. And we look at it as like this, oh my God, what are we gonna do? Like, you know what? Somebody is dying every day the same way. Okay, and what happened to the survivors, like our friend Pat? Like, that's how we remember people, man. Twitch, dude, did amazing things, made a lot of people smile, was incredibly talented. But to hear that everybody's so surprised makes me sick to my stomach. Because if we haven't learned by now, none of this, like, Twitch didn't surprise me. It didn't surprise me at all. Like, I'm not surprised.
I actually just said those words. If we haven't learned by now, I said that
right.
like 2 days
but
ago.
I'm just not surprised that we lost, another celebrity.
Right.
Like that. Why is anybody shocked?
Let me say this: we've lost another human.
Right.
That's
exactly.
why, because we,
well,
like you said, I know.
I'm segregating it because the thing is that we lose touch with humanity because we're so busy filling our void with other stuff that, oh my God. And dude, the same thing goes, like, Chris Cornell, obviously his death affected us in different ways because he was somebody that literally changed music for us. For me, especially as a singer, like, he changed it. So to think that for a lot of people, absolutely. And, to think that their tour was completely sold out and the first night he's literally ending his life in his hotel afterwards. And there's a lot of things that we can talk about when it comes to those types of things.
Yeah.
But the point is that, unfortunately, Chris has become another statistic, just like Twitch. And that's what he is. He's a statistic. You can pedestal him. You can pedestal Chester Bennington and Robin Williams and Anthony Bourdain and Kate Spade. We can pedestal them for all the wonderful things that they did and contributed to this world. But we miss the point if we can't look at the human side of suffering and pain. Because just because you look like on the outside you got your shit together,
right,
doesn't mean that low self-opinion isn't there. And maybe because they filled the world with so much good, maybe that's how they were keeping the low self-opinion at bay. And that's the thing about this, like, just about suicide prevention in general. It's like, and I've said this before and people will hate me for it, but you cannot, it's not preventable for everyone. Okay, it's not.
I agree,
I'm sorry. It's not. I wish it was, because if it was, we would have a whole different discussion about the world. But it's not. And it's the people who die in silence that don't get talked about on social media because they're not a celebrity.
Right.
That we don't keep in mind.
Well said. Well, geez, I got chills there. I couldn't have said it better myself. I agree with 110% of all of that. And, again, it's like you said, people were like, oh my gosh, I'm so surprised he was always smiling.
Right. He's always smiling. Dude, so was Robin Williams. He was always making everybody laugh.
What does it take? What will it take for someone to sit down and go, wow, you know what? This is real. We need to.
Dude, it's funny you say that because we've obviously COVID has changed a lot of things. And especially where I work, now, there was a pre-COVID world, and now there's a post-COVID world. And the post-COVID world is not good for many, many people, okay? Sure. But what really helped me during COVID was the fact that I was forced to shut it all down. And it made me start thinking about things differently. And it also made me question why I just could not stop taking gigs, regardless of whether it was beneficial or not. And you can say what's beneficial as to what's not. But what happens is that I realized this over the years. Like, you're hired for a 3-hour gig, you wind up playing for 3 hours and 45 minutes because, yes, people are liking it. But you know what it is because I'm afraid. I'm afraid that my opinion of myself is based on what I can do for others in that space. And it really dawned on me that the reason why I could never stop, like the reason why I stayed on the treadmill for as long as I did, was because it was so locked into who I was or what I thought of myself. And I've said this to my buddies, and I don't know if I've said this to you, but my opinion of myself was that if I don't go above and beyond, I'm never going to get asked back. And to be quite honest with you, in 2022, I don't give a fuck if I get asked at all. Just because, like, it's not where I get my value from.
Right.
And I don't have to put my value. I love music, but it's not that I don't have to do it now because I have to fill this empty space in me.
And going back to what I was saying earlier, that kind of fits in there, is because, and maybe just because somebody doesn't ask you back, that doesn't necessarily mean that, right? But in our mind,
but in my mind, it did.
Right.
And in my mind, I've always felt, and we've talked about this, imposter syndrome. We get into this, and we wonder why we do the things we do. And it's in that integration of things you learn about yourself and the world, and the different modalities that you're practicing in and walking around that help you realize that, wow, my value is really within.
That's right. Yeah, that's what I was trying to say, man. Just everything we need is inside. That's
right.
Where,
There's no separation. There's no.
And as you were saying, like, I think the most important thing you can do is kind of what you were just saying, is ask that question. Why do I do the things that I do? Why am I feeling this way? And then start there and peel those layers. And as I always say, connect the dots. Why did this happen? Well, let me see. Yesterday, oh, well, okay, well, no, that's not it. Well, I didn't sleep last night. Oh, maybe I didn't eat breakfast this morning. Okay, why am I extra irritable? Maybe I'm anxious because I got a gig on Friday and it's Thursday. You know what I mean? You got to look. You got to peel back layers and figure out what it is. Ask these questions. Ask, who am I? Why am I doing this? But
what am I doing it for? Who am I doing it for? Is it for you, or is it to fill a hole that, until I realized that I was never going to be able to fill this hole that's in me, because you can't go back.
No.
You can't go back. So you either have to learn how to live with that hole and not pay attention to that hole if there's a hole there at all, or you develop something else and all of a sudden you realize that there's no hole at all. Because, you know what? There's nothing you can do about it.
And the hole could be made up, right?
It could, certainly. Certainly, it could just be a hole that we've created for ourselves.
We've created. And I think going back to, asking those questions, ask, where do my thoughts come from? Write down, journal, where do my thoughts come from? And take notes and see, again, what day did I do this, and how did I respond to this, and maybe why. Notice that every thought comes from something in your mind, and
and they might be false.
Right. And I was just about to say, like, if observe these thoughts and distinguish, fact, fiction. And while the thing is, most importantly, in my opinion, would be, while you're doing these, is you have to let go of the judgments, because that will just stunt the growth and it will put a whole boot in the project.
Yeah, I agree completely.
So, but asking questions, ask yourself questions. Again, I don't know. I mean, this is me. I look within. It's like, especially if it's something that you're doing, if you have this low self-esteem, low self-worth, that's you have it. We've talked about this before. Will may say, like, oh, I feel this, I have this, and I look at him and I'm like, wow, like, I would have never, you know what I mean? Like, you have that? Like, wow. Like, because I see you differently.
Right. Well, it's funny that you say that, because Henry also said this. If you could see the you that I see, when I see you, you would see things differently, I assure you. But that all comes to our own self-belief.
Right.
And what we believe we are, or what we've been programmed to believe we are. Because I do really believe that a lot of this is programmed. And it's made to be programmed, because you can't have a consumeristic society to fix yourself if you don't have people who feel like they need to fix themselves. And that, as much as we're in this space, it's still like there's legitimate reasons to be in this space, but you do see an awful lot of that. Oh, if you fix this, you're gonna be rocking.
Well, and I think I think someone that has a little grasp on it and knowledge on this stuff, I think that they can decipher the difference between, someone out there selling their 3 easy steps bullshit as opposed to someone like, hey, you know what? You may not get rid of your anxiety, but here's how you can manage it and decrease the symptoms and learn to live with it.
That's right. And you may even create something new out of it. I'm not opposed to people creating new things.
Oh, no.
Whatsoever, because everybody can come up with their own spin on things. It's just that you get tired of being sold the less than bill of goods. Because that's where really what a lot of this is they parade around the pretty stuff, and then they're like, what? Because you're not that way. Right. You can be this way if you take this, or if you do this.
Earlier is like even the media is a big variable to this, because let's face it, whether it's TV or our phones, or iPads, whatever. There's a lot of screens out there and there's a lot of faces in those screens.
There is, and we are also developing a generation of younger people that are like inundated with this stuff. And you can see it now, and you can call it whatever you want, but what you're seeing now is you're seeing a world full of vacant jobs that actually need to get done because they are of value. But I don't know where everybody went. I don't know where they went. So, like, everybody can't come up with a program and be a pop star or be an author. Like, you just can't. Like, just because you see something doesn't mean that, like, that's going to be your ticket to Pie Town.
I think some of it is people have a obscured, or maybe that's people have an obscured definition of things as far as like success. Like you were saying, like if you're you could be a mailman, and if you deliver your rounds safely and make it home, that's success.
Absolutely.
Like, you don't have to be a YouTube sensation to be a success.
But where did everybody go? Where'd they all go? Like, I'm still like dumbfounded by.
I don't know where they went.
I'm still trying to feel like, is everybody hiding in their house?
Maybe they're looking in the mirror. Maybe they decided that they were mindful enough to recognize their low self-worth, opinions of themselves, and their low self-esteem, and they're looking in the mirrors and they're working on themselves. And I think a new world will emerge. Come on, man! I was going with that. That was good.
That was golden, though. I love, dude. Right? That was a very good vision of hope.
Thank you.
I'm a little cynical today, I guess. Yes. I'm wearing my cynical shoes.
I know, I felt it, but as you say, we are the curators of hope, so I had to throw it out there.
We are the curators of hope. Even going into the 4th year and nearly 200 episodes in, man, we're still promoting hope, and I love it. So what are you going to do about your low self-opinion if you have one? And if you don't have one and you have a self-absorbed opinion of yourself, why do you have that? And what caused that? And is that real? Because that's the opposite of having low self-esteem, is the high self-esteem and holding yourself in a narcissistic high regard that you do no wrong, you don't need anybody to tell you anything, and you know it all.
Although
so that's
I think
the
you can
opposite.
have high self-esteem and not be.
You can, but it takes humility. And if anything is a precursor to any of it, if you watch any of this stuff, there's not a lot of humility in a lot of this stuff, man. Like, there's not a lot of humility in anything anymore. And I think that's part of the reason
we're bringing it back, baby.
Part of the reason why we've lost our way. But hey, that's just my cynical opinion now. Because I am a cynical man. And on that note,
no, I'm just going to say that.
Yeah, and on that note, with the first episode of 2023 for us together here, Timmy, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Or I should say happy calendar flip, because I still got another 3 months in my year, my friend. I will say, that was one of the best things that I've changed in my mind, is the idea that New Year comes on the calendar flip of January 1st. Because you don't get a year until you've circled the sun in an entire year of your life, okay? And if you weren't born on January 1st, well, you're fucked, because you didn't even have a whole year, so. I love you all. Until next week, get well.
Be safe.
Stay
above. Thank you for giving us a listen. New episodes every Wednesday. If you listen on Apple Podcasts, you can share, rate, review, and even subscribe so you'll never miss an episode. Other ways to support the show: follow us on social media, share the content, share our episodes. You can also buy us a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/abovegroundpod. For further concerns, show ideas, or just to say hi, you can email us at abovegroundpodcast@gmail.com. Once again, thank you for listening and supporting mental health. Keep the conversation going and stay above.